The practice of not having to do something productive. This is for me, this is probably my thing because I am constantly seeking to be busy. Like I love to be doing something that I feel like is moving the needle, so to speak. How does this in your life? Like, do you feel that tension?
I do. I mean, I obviously do. I'm a pretty aggressive person, but I think the funny thing is, so for those of you who don't know, Carson is actually my son-in-law, so I know him very well.
Yeah.
And this is definitely one of the things that you have. And it's always this, you're a project guy, you love the next hill, you love the next charge. And what happens, in this is, and again, it's almost one of those things where you have to just will yourself. Because, and it's not just because we're bad people. We live in a culture that kind of honors productivity. And in fact, productivity isn't bad. I mean, it's not like it's a bad thing. It's just what tends to happen when we fall into this trap of feeling like we always have to be doing something productive. If you stop and sort of allow it to allow the space, right? What you'll find is often that it's because we seem that our productivity equates our worth. Mm-hmm. And it's in that place that we really have to sort of get focused on, or the work needs to be done, so we don't end up just running that into into the future where everything is constantly about that.
Yeah, and this is it's funny. A couple weeks ago, I went to the doctor for like my annual physical, and my doctor sits me down and he says, "Hey, you seem healthy. Your numbers look pretty good, but you are constantly running. You are constantly working, and that's going to hurt your health one day. Like you've got to do something about that." And for me, I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just work harder in the time that I'm working,
Right.
and then I'll get to leave earlier." And that's just kind of a crazy like way to think. But I think that we get stuck in the cycle because if I'm being really honest, a good bit of the reason that I work maybe as hard as I do is because I have connected that to my worth. And I feel like if I pull back on my productivity, people won't see me as valuable anymore, or they won't, see the worth that I want them to see. And it gets into this trap. And I think it's an exhausting trap. Like
Yeah.
I can feel depleted by
Yeah.
it. What do you recommend to somebody who's like me, who's walking through this? How do we take steps to get out of it?
Well, I think you've got to stop. Like you have to stop and give yourself that permission. And it literally, especially for someone who needs like a directive, I've done this with you. It's like, hey, Carson, make sure you're not doing something today. Go enjoy the water, or go just because you have to give yourself permission to stop. Because what eventually happens is it gets into this place where we actually feel guilty about not doing things that are contributing to success, or even in the noble cause of working in a church, right? You're not doing things that are furthering the church. And the rhythms we've been designed to live in are rest. It's rest for the sake of work. The other thing that happens is our work, when we equate it to our identity, we say that our productivity is the equal part to our worth. It actually robs work of being the thing that it's supposed to do. The work of our hands, the things that we create and produce, are good things, but they are expressions of our identity and not to be substituted for them. And what inevitably happens is when we are working as a way to prove our worth, we actually don't ever get to allow our work to serve as an expression and a contribution of who we are. And what emerges when you sort of create this space, this place to practice the discipline of not having to be productive, what you find when you begin to break your worth from your productivity is that your identity as one who belongs to God begins to take center stage, and you begin to live as an expression of that reality.
That's good. I think that for me, I jump into that cycle and I'll go, okay, well, if I'm gonna stop, I try to make the stopping point productive, or
Right.
to cram it into a section of time. So if you're saying, hey, take a break, stop and process. What's some like guidelines or some guardrails we could
Yeah.
put around that? Because people like me, we like to make up our own rules.
So I'm going to have like this week. It's so funny. You get Thanksgiving break, and for those of you who have jobs where this is what it is, you go, oh, we get 2 days off, and really what happens is you have to do 5 days of work in 3 days. Mm-hmm. So it's like it is nice, but what I have to do is it really requires me to prioritize and to give myself permission to take a break. There are things that require us to drop what we're doing and go and tend to that thing. That is not most things. And a lot of it, we just have those lines blurred. And so when you get these places, you have to create some really intentional spaces to Sabbath, to slow down, to stop. I remember one of the things that happened to me was probably about probably 10 years ago. We were able to go to Bald Head Island for 7 days. I'd never done this before. It was in the kind of the peak growth season of the church. We've been running 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I'd taken vacations and breaks before. But I remember on this one particular week, after about 2 or 3 days, I was like, what am I going to do? And I had rested, I'd slowed down. But what I realized after about day 5, when I finally stopped, everything kind of settled. And what I realized that I'd been running for probably 10 or 11, 12 years, and I had basically, it was like a 747. I had landed the plane, but I had basically just done a touch and go. I'd got on the runway, stopped, and then taken off again. I'd never actually stopped. And so it really took that to and now in my own life, and it doesn't mean I'm not lazy, but I stop. Like, I make myself stop, and it's a discipline. But what I find there is I can reconnect with who I am, who I'm called to be, and it allows me to bring that to my work instead of replacing those things.
That's really good. I think about that allows our work to be worship.
Absolutely.
And when it's upside down, it's idolatry.
Yep,
Because
that's exactly right.
we're trying to prove something.
Yep.
And I think just taking a breath,
Yep.
and I think what a perfect week,
Yep.
Thanksgiving week.
Yep.
Like we're
Yep.
getting ready to be around some family and process a couple days off, hopefully. And I think for me, what I've got to do is I've got to like put it on my calendar.
You got to put it on
like,
your calendar.
I'm gonna be off mentally during this time.
And I think in your journal, like when you stop, don't just stop, and because you'll feel like you should be doing something. That's not going to go away just because you stopped. You got to have some words and some ways to go. I'm going to stop. I'm going to enjoy some things, and what I'm going to enjoy is not doing the things that always drive me. And that's what will begin to emerge in that place as well. You'll start to see those things.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a great summary of the practice of not doing something productive. And I think that as we journey forward, we've got to continue to process this together. So if you have questions or you need help, reach out to us through Instagram, YouTube, our website. You can get us anywhere. We'd love to talk more with you about this.